Hey class, let's look at the estimating difference in random samples homework section. The first video we did was over the first six problems, but it was more of a vocab introductory and just an idea of what mu1 minus mu2 being positive, negative, or zero meant for us in the overall outcome of the problem or the experiment. Uh, This video, depending on how long it runs, we're going to look at how to do these on the statistical analysis learning tool, SALT. Um, if it doesn't run too long, I'll also pull one up on a graphing calculator. I may have to make a separate video for that. But anyway, let's get to it. For large U.S. companies, what percentage of their total income comes from foreign sales? A random sample of technology companies gave the following information. Another independent random sample of basic consumer products companies gave us the following information. So we have two different groups of data, and we're going to compare one versus the other. All right, so down underneath where you see that use salt icon, we assume that the distributions of percentage foreign revenue are mound-shaped and symmetric for these two companies. We are not given population standard deviation, and since we're going to compare these two, we need to get an average and standard deviation for each group. That's these first four boxes. Okay, so when you click use salt, as always, you get a population pre-populated data set. The technology entries are in the left column. Basic consumer products are in the right. Note that there was a difference in sample size. One group had one more item than the other. That's not a big deal. Now, to get our first values, we're going to need to start to jump that around on you. We're going to go to descriptive stats. Okay, so group 1, X1 bar is 51.6625. I'm going to write this down for convenience. S sub 1 is 7.9277. Now for the other group, the basic consumer group, we have a mean, and this will be X2 bar 33.6, and S sub 2 will be 12.2572. Now as far as answering your problems go, you feel free to absolutely copy and paste, and it's probably going to be just as quick to do copy and paste. So bear with me for a little bit while I get these copied and pasted. I will try to be quick with it. I will have to go back and be sure that the rounding is correct. Let's see, round to 4 decimal places. Any of them that were cut short, don't worry about it. This one by default ran them 4 long. Okay, now when it comes to the actual confidence interval, this is where having these 4 values written down on your notepad will come in handy. For some reason, either the software doesn't or I haven't figured out a way to keep all that pre-populated data in here. So we're going to go to inferential statistics. Because we're comparing two groups, to sample T. Let's stroll down here and switch from hypothesis testing. That's going to be in chapter 8. This chapter we're doing confidence intervals. So make sure you click confidence interval, 95% confidence interval, so that gets to stay the same. Be sure to adjust that as needed. Okay, so X sub 1 bar, that first average was 51.6625. Sample standard deviation, that's S sub 1, 7.9277. The first group had 16. The second group had 17. I'm going to go ahead and fix that while I'm here. Now the second group, X bar sub 2, that was 33.6. And S sub 2 was 12.2572. These standard deviations are not that close to one another, so I would not check that. If this one was like 11.5 and this one's 12.2, where they're pretty darn close to one another, I would assume equal variances. But if we're not sure or they don't look like they're that close together, leave it unchecked. Generate results. We have a confidence interval in the differences, group 1 minus group 2, of 10.739. That's the lower limit, to 25.386. I'm just writing these down, y'all. You can actually copy and paste. That's our lower. This is our upper. Be careful on the rounding. Round to 2 decimal places. So this is actually going to be a 74. And this one will be a 39 once it's said and done. The 6 makes the 8 and 9. All right. The limits are exclusively positive, which means that mu1 is greater than mu2. Examine a confidence interval. Because the interval contains only positives, we can say technology companies receive a higher percentage of foreign revenue. We were not given sigma 1 or sigma 2. We had to find the sample deviation, which was the English letter S. Students T, and we used a t-test because these were unknown. I'm going to submit. And just to show you that the answers are correct, let me pan through here. This is how you would do the SALT. If we are comparing proportions, let me jump down. This one's fine here. A random sample of 388 married couples found that 300 had 2 or more personality preferences in common. In another random sample of 552 married couples, it was found that only 34 had no preferences in common. Let P sub 1 be the population proportion of all married couples who have 2 or more personality preferences in common. Let P sub 2 be the population proportion of all married couples who have no personality preferences in common. Okay. Notice I closed out that other SALT tab. You don't have to do that. I do it because I'm finished with that previous problem, and I'm going to open it up with a fresh problem. Now, I do know that P hat sub 1 is going to be 300 over 388. I'm just jotting these down. P hat sub 2 is 34 out of 552. All right, so let's open her up. Inferential statistics, 2 sample proportion. In the first group, we had 300 out of 388. In the second group, there were 34 out of 552. Switch over to confidence interval. We are asked to come up with a 90% confidence interval. So we're going to change this to 90. Generate results. Okay, so the difference in P, P1 minus P2, has a confidence interval from 0.67 up to 0.75. these two values. Let me copy and paste. And we'll adjust the rounding when we get back there. Here we go. Okay, so round 3 decimal places. That's 7's going to make that a 3. And 4 is not going to change the 0. Because the interval contains only positive numbers, we can say that a higher proportion of married couples have 2 or more personality preferences in common. I'm going to submit, and we'll double check to make sure it's right. It is. And since we were approaching the 11-minute mark, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video, and I'll come back on with another video where we do using the TI-84. In my opinion, SALT's a little bit quicker on here because you don't have to enter in all the data, whereas on the graphing calculator you do.